Um, Thank you, Carrie. I like him a lot. He's a great practitioner, teacher, and a student as well, lifetime student, really. But, he really did his job, I think, probably by speaking to the science in a way that most people could make some kind of contact with, which helps me realize that we're really a very sophisticated group. We really have focused on the science for 15 years. We know a lot, actually. We're like each of us walking neuroscientists, ourselves, as was the Buddha, right? Of course. And I think comparatively, we go, well, we already knew that, right? Of course, we know about fight and flight. We know about automatic pilot. And most of us here, if not almost all of us, came to this community, this beautiful, loving community, by virtue of the mindfulness course. And so there was a lot, right? Wasn't there? I use a lot of science in that course. I'm really selling the idea of being with yourself for 8 weeks for the rest of your lives. And then in our continuation here, we're working not only on being with ourselves, but then being with ourselves so that we can be truly present, loving, compassionate, aren't we? Wise and available with others. And I want to let everyone know we're doing a bang up job, just a bang up job. We've got Philabelly going now. We're collecting jackets. We're doing St. Andrew's Food Pantry. Today is Giving Tuesday. Blessings to everyone who has made a contribution or is yet to make a contribution to that. I want to speak to that for only a moment. I'm not really in commercial mode so much today, but I do want you to know anything you contribute today or have contributed in the last several days uh, and month will go directly, be matched by our community. So it's already doubled. And then we're going to be sending that money on today to Shelter Box, which is going to double it again. And so the 2 times that we offer plus the 2 double that is offered by Shelter Box, in addition, is going to equal some significant contribution to helping those, like in North Carolina, uh, right there where Siobhan is, providing essentials. And in one of our Rotary conversations, one of the Shelter Box reps was there. I was very lucky to get to meet him, a very young man who I just thought was so incredible. And he had shown us at Rotary a solar lantern that Shelter Box had just purchased from him to use for light, particularly in times where there, as is happening still, isn't it, Siobhan? No electricity in areas, no warmth in areas still. The flooding where it was significant has really done pervasive and long-standing damage. This will not be fixed next week, will it? It is not a simple issue. The government comes in and then doesn't, and so it will be left to us, won't it? Very consistently. And I'm not distressed by that reality. I'm encouraged because it was always true. It was always going to be us. It was always going to be you, wasn't it? Always. It was never going to be, as Pema says, and I repeat often, there was no babysitter coming to take care of it for us. We are, it is essential then that we take care of us and each other. So thank you all so much for that. I do know that some of you had committed and haven't yet been able to get to that. What I'm going to do is put the uh, link in the chat. That will have to happen today. I don't know by what time. I'm going to look to Carrie uh, and see if I know it has to come in today for shelter box.
Yeah, I think I mean, I'm gonna come home from work and do it. So
Okay. So by 6 p.m., please have made any, and I'm looking at a lot of you who've already made a contribution, by the way. So thank you again so much. Um, and so enough about that. Important though, a conversation and topic. And so then, hindrances. We're going to be looking at chapter 7, clear seeing. I've really been working with you all and myself on this idea of ever opening, ever expanding space and luminosity, which I suppose when it gets down to the relative simply means love, probably, right? The care, the attention, the warmth, the spaciousness. That's how I feel when I am feeling loving, caring, connected, attending. And I know that's how you feel as well. And then, as we've been talking, we have also all noticed the other moment, the moment where "Rah, not so loving, not so warm, not so spacious, a little contracted, a little tight in the chest, a little anxious, a little fearful, a lot greedy, as is really um, so evident to me as I just look at the stuff in my living room for Christmas. I'm like, oh my God, I don't even have the mind to get this all put somewhere. It's going to take me days. Um, and so greed. And then we talked on Saturday about generosity, which was the natural antidote to greed. And actually, from the point of view of this tradition and these traditions, generosity is our natural state. It really is. You can feel the impulse. Couldn't you, as I was just talking about Shelter Box and talking about the contribution and talking with Siobhan about the reality that our neighbors, our relatives, our um, family are not doing well, are in need of support, right? You felt that warmth, that opening. And then what we're going to talk about today is what got in your way. And it did. It did get in your way, which is, well, you know, I don't live in North Carolina. So, maybe I better save my nuts for a day that it's here in Escondido. That could be one of the factors. And that's a fear factor then also met with greed, right? I better just save it or keep it. Um, and then another factor is I don't have time. That takes us into a kind of dullness, a kind of sloth. It's like there's so much to do. I've got to hang the ornaments. I've got to get the kitchen cleaned up. I've got to get right. I've got all of this stuff to do that and we just get weighted down by the idea. Like, one more thing, one more link, one more click, one more have to find time to get to this. We do this often. We do this with ourselves and our own self care. I was just reading a neuroscience article, one that I'll send out. It was certainly worth the read about where we spend our half hours. Uh, Research on where we spend our half hours. Uh, Nowhere good, folks. Nowhere good. Nowhere good. Let me tell you, the amount of porn, by the way, that was identified in these little, what could I be doing with my time right now? Click, really was staggering. Scrolling, staggering. Looking over my Facebook page, looking over, and again, it isn't that I don't want to encourage connection, but we will spend half hours, 45 minutes, or an hour doing it, and we can't seem to find the way, right, to 15 minutes of meditation. Can we? And so we use time, don't we all? We use it as a device and we use it as an excuse. We all do it. Right? Too tired, too lonely, too hungry. Not enough of this. And then we go right into greed because scrolling is that. Why? Why is scrolling or porn greed? It's something you're getting. It's just an addicted high, isn't it? Right? It's just a gobble. Get me this quick. Distraction as well, Courtney says. Exactly right. In addition to just get me some quick hit of adrenaline, get me away from what is otherwise what? Painful, hard, scary, grief, a loss, a confusion, a not understanding. And we cannot tolerate, and we have to be honest about it, and our culture is one of the worst. We cannot tolerate a moment of discomfort. It is not in us. We have become uh, really so uh, expecting and then demanding of things going our way that we can barely tolerate the boxes in the living room. Right? This is the truth. And then can become overwhelmed by it. Why? Not enough space, not enough luminosity, not enough remembering, right? And then the hindrances come to claim us and our really, truly luminous heart minds, don't they? Because that's really what and who we are. But look at how easy in these moments it is. So we're going to sit for 15 minutes now. I see someone here named Valentine, I think. Um, she's walking around. I just want to say hello to you. We'll talk some more later, hopefully, but good to see you on. You're not someone I know, but love to have you. We'll be sitting for 15 minutes silently. I'll give just brief instruction at the beginning for just resting in our true nature, this really luminous open. And then I'm going to move into the lake or pond metaphor that we've done before during retreat. I know we did it around the hindrances. And this metaphor is as if pouring dye into a lake and then being taken up by its color, but not allowing us to see clearly. It's like having the winds frothing the surface of the lake, really, again, dulling our capacity to see clearly to the bottom, right, into the depth of the lake. And both with its distraction, as Courtney said, and or with its sucre, right, as well as moss covered lake, which is from our dullness and our sloth, and then the desert, which is often in this metaphor understood as muddy water. But I like the desert metaphor better because this is the nature of our doubt. It leaves us completely alone, completely without nourishment, completely having abandoned ourself, the practice, and our well-being. And so we're going to prepare to sit. I won't be striking the bell because nobody can hear it over there on your end. So just finding a comfortable posture. We're going to be resting for these 15 minutes in that silent luminosity. And so the very best way, I think, to begin to make contact with it is to just feel the sense of open space first. eyes open or closed, whatever's most comfortable for you. I get a little distracted by objects with my eye open initially. And since I really just want to rest back in open space, the darkness for me is a little more supportive. And the way to best make contact with the luminous, open, vast space is really at the end of the out breath, noticing the movement of the breath as it expands and then as it contracts. We're just noticing the body doing breathing. And then at the end of the out breath, there is nothing but vast, open, infinite space. And in fact, as I've been looking at the instructions from the old masters, they actually suggest you hold the breath for just a fleeting second there, that you don't rush headlong into the next moment, that you languor a moment in the stillness at the end of the out breath. And so we'll practice that for a few moments, and then I'll move right into guiding. And as we do so, remember that warm, loving, luminous heart mind that is knowing this truth. Feeling that vast, open, infinite, still and silent space, the quality, the characteristic of your own true awakened heart mind. Remembering first that this luminosity, this awareness, this light in this vast open space, we might say this knowing, is never obstructed, always available, ever present, always you. In that more absolute, universal, unconditioned truth. And we can feel that inherent connectedness, that remembering, that knowing as we sit silently. We may have noticed thoughts arising and passing, like the breath or sound, like sensations, emotions, even mind states, but no problem. Just a momentary arising. And the hindrances are merely these. They are not who we really are. They are a momentary cloud in the vast sky. The reality of weather in an otherwise unobstructed reality of uh, warmth and sun and clear seeing. And so to know this first. And then we could imagine that sun uh, moving through that vast open space to hit the surface of a still forest pond. It would only illumine, make bright, make radiant, and expand that light. The shimmering surface of this still forest pond, mirror like. Just expanding, mirroring, and multiplying that radiance. This is every moment of our basic goodness, of our inherent connectedness to all beings and all things. Our true nature. Everything is included, everything is made brighter by this radiant, luminous light. And then we could imagine a moment of a sense desire, a moment of wanting more, wanting it another way, a certain hunger, a thirst, uh, grasping. And the pond then becomes one of the images I come up with frequently is a kind of glitter filled, colored pond. It's beautiful. We're drunk and drunken by its allure. And we cannot then clearly see our own luminosity or even that of the ponds. And no matter how shiny, no matter how beautiful the color, we simply want more. You can feel a kind of contracted nausea around this tanha, around this hunger, this thirst. Nothing is enough. It's like a bottomless well. Another shiny moment, and then another. We can feel the emptiness, the not enoughness, the gotta get more-ness in it. This is the hindrance of greed. And the pond becomes so clogged by the glitter, by the color, it becomes stagnant and will always go into stasis. Not enough, not ever enough, just more and more and more. like the hungry ghost. And feel the effects. You know this hindrance of sense, desire, and the wanting mind. Another hindrance is aggression, ill will, hatred, aggression, violence, which then affects the still pond like a pond of boiling water or boiling lava. It's too hot, too big, the energy is too much, and so it spills out and onto others. And see if you can make contact with that felt sense of hatred, aggression, or ill will, this reality of our natural arising aversion when we don't want, this not wanting mind, this other making mind, this not this moment, not like this mind, not our true nature. And in our luminosity, remembering that we can see and know even this, the radiance, the luminosity never obstructed. But you can feel this felt sense clearly as well. Hot, hurtful, harming, othering. See if you can make contact with that reality of that momentary hindrance as well. The anger is so potent, so harming. Remember, it frequently spills, oozes onto others. We call this blame or projection. Feeling the effects. Closes the area of the heart. Out of control. Nothing is ever enough from here. There is no way to access the pond. We are truly alone, disconnected. And then there is the quality of sluggishness, a torpor, dullness. There's very little energy. The stagnancy of the pond grows in algae, lifeless. This dullness prevents any clear seeing and also any actions to correct it. This might be likened maybe to wandering mind, daydreaming mind, just lulling about. No direction, no intention, inert. And then the opposite of that is the hindrance of restlessness, sometimes understood as worry, disturbed mind, both quality of mind and then a quality of the body as well, agitated, uncomfortable. And this is that frothing wind running across the surface of the pond, being blown about this way and that. In the froth, we also cannot see clearly. The mind is busy but frenetically active, quite distressed. No refuge, no anchor, just being blown about. See if you can make contact with that mind state, that perseverating about the past or the future, the limitations of that mind. No real solutions, no real options, just frothing. And feel the body of this. It's also quite distressing, really. It's contracting, over energizing, nowhere to go. Wraps around itself. And then finally, the hindrance of doubt, doubting one's own capacities, doubting the truth of the Dharma, the teachings, doubting the benefit, the essential value of the Sangha. And this is like that in the suttas, like the muddied water, but I again have a preference for the desert, the cracked, dry soil. No refuge, no rain, no water at all. Barren, burden. And in all of these states, in all of these conditions, these are simply conditions. They are not our true nature. Our nature is that of the luminous sun, the vast open space, and the embrace of it all. We can use even the hindrances themselves as an opportunity for the bright light of luminosity to shine upon these conditions, coming to insight and understanding, cultivating compassion and wisdom for all of us in our moments, stuck in whichever of the hindrances we are, never mistaking them for our true nature or the true nature of another. Not so. And then we rest back in that open space, that luminous, radiant light, abiding all conditions and being captured, hijacked by none. We rest back at the end of that out breath, our own inner forest pond, luminous, bright, still, spacious. Remember who we really are. May this practice be a benefit to the end of suffering and the realization of true abiding happiness and freedom. So be it. And then opening to include the body sitting here, checking in, offering what is needed. Valentine, it looks like, found us through Facebook. I did a Facebook post after about 6 months. I know I got so inspired yesterday. Instead of doing the boxes, I thought, oh, I could do stuff on the computer. Uh, yeah, nothing like a little distraction. And I wrote quite a long post letting people know how we're doing, and she found us that way, which is lovely. So how wonderful. Sorry we didn't get to say hello. And so then let's just check in before we go to the book on this idea of the hindrances. And I think what's most amazing about them is when we are in them, we forget really the truth of our luminosity, the truth of our spaciousness, the truth of our, the minute we can remember or even begin to see them more as conditioned objects rather than the truth of who we really are, they just become kind of interesting then. And we don't get quite as hooked into identifying them or reifying them, making them other. Like that person is always this, right? Solidifying, as is the tendency of the uh, conditioned mind, right? To grab something and make it solid, make it me, make it not me, um, and then perseverate, I think is also the case. Then just wrap around it and make up a story about it and then feed that with some other evidence that's so easy to collect about what the other did or didn't do and how they are or how they aren't, right? And we spend our time, that is no improvement on porn, folks. That is our porn. That's what I actually meant before, right? Isn't it? It's our active everyday porn. Story about this, story about that, story about you, story about me, story about what should be happening, story about what's not happening. It's our everyday porn. We can get really caught up, can't we? All quite actively in that story making mind. And it's addictive, just like porn. Just addictive, like alcohol. And I want us to know this because we often have lots of judgments about what other people are doing, uh, are watching others in their distractibility and their worry. In their, I watched my mom uh, recently, though I have to say things are getting better. Um, she is now on Lexapro. Yay, mom. It's the best thing we ever did was get mom on Lexapro. Holy cow, changed everything. Smartest move. I like, no, you just have to get on it. And noticing already her own sense of balance, her own who she really is, kind of starting to come through that now. And the constant kind of, what about this? What about this? What about this? What about this? So that all of the goodness of her current life is completely unusable. That she has family who loves her and a beautiful home and generally good health. Uh, all falls away to the distress, the frothing of that worry and that anxiety. So you all know where you land, and we all have certain favorites, I suppose. Though I think we're also all capable of falling into all those conditions ourselves. We are also capable of seeing them. And this is the part that I really want to focus on. The light is shining always on all of those conditions. You can see where you are. And even if you can't see it, what you can always do is feel it. It never feels good, does it? It never. When we are caught in the conditions of the hindrances, it never feels good. And so, if you are not feeling good or well, guess what you can know? One of the hindrances has clouded your awakened heart mind. Can't you know this? You can know. And then it's just a matter of, am I feeling overly energized? Am I feeling right aggressive? Am I feeling like I just want more and more? What's really happening? And the very moment you begin to recognize something's happening to me, you have already distinguished. It is not me. It is a quality of mind happening to me by my own conditioned habit and karmic nature. Yes, all of that too. But the very minute we know it, liberation, freedom, possibility, opportunity, right? To then bring some kind of antidote, some kind of kindness, some kind of response, some kind of open heartedness to it, changes it immediately. I don't think it means the feeling goes away, particularly. The frothing is the frothing, the dullness is the dullness. I don't think it's magic. And I think you are inherently different in that moment. Just going, yeah, I see where I'm at. I see what's actually happening. This is anxiety just propagating itself. This is me wanting it another way. This is me wanting uh, what I want in the way I want it. You are already free there. Doesn't mean the residual felt sense is all gone. So don't mistake it. It takes time to make it happen, to establish those conditions of heart mind. It will also take time to resolve them so that we are once again in ease, in calm, in tranquility, in serenity, in equanimity. But it doesn't mean that isn't working. We're seeing it clearly. This is a beautiful beginning. Okay, so don't abandon yourself by going, well, it's still here. Not exactly. Not exactly. Any thoughts or comments before we go to the book about this? Looks like we're good. Let's see what the Zonkini has to say. Then here's the Kindle. Move it back over. Let's see if that helps us. Can we see pretty okay from there? Pretty workable. Yeah, thanks, Lynn. So here we are back in chapter 7. We're going to finish this up with just review. It's a brief review of the hindrances. He says here, I'm not sure what page this is, 149 maybe. It starts a discussion. I'm letting Libby look in the book. Hindrances, there we go. So the main hindrance to settling and focusing are of two sorts: over energized or under energized. We call that sloth and torpor, dullness on the one side, agitation, worry, uh, energized states like greed and anger are all, they have a certain kind of gobbly energy. And he says here, agitation is when the mind is very energized. It feels wild, feisty, wanders all over the place, that might be distracted. It's full of thoughts shooting in the past and future. We are everywhere but the present moment. And if we are in the present moment, we're not liking it very much. And so we shoot back off into how do I get out of here? And it propagates itself. That's the papancha quality of mind. The opposite hindrance is dullness. I can barely get to the practice. I can't get to the practice. I can't remember why it's a good idea to practice. I forgot completely. I barely have the energy to drag myself up and out of bed. If I'm going to do anything, it's going to be to eat some cookies. That's it. I can barely get through the day. We all have these qualities, again, of heart mind. They are not our nature, though. And I want to point that out again and again. It is a conditioned state. We frequently, what would be the word? Ping pong, there's a better word. Juxtapose, something, vacillate. Thank you, Libby, between them. Right? We get over energized. We can't sustain that. That's an unsustainable state. And so we then sink into what am I doing anyway? Forget about the whole thing. I do this every day. I notice these little vacillations, like going, right? A really complete confidence in the practice, in the nature of heart mind. And then a difficult moment where I go, really? I don't know. Maybe not. Blah. Right. Now they're momentary because what? If we can see what's happening, we don't get carried away or caught by them. They do become the moving winds. They're still there, but they don't sweep us away. And we care about this because once we're swept up in it, it really does take more, doesn't it, to get ourselves make contact again. So be careful about this. There was the metaphor of the stream cascading. I love this, the waterfall that then becomes the stream, which then becomes the meandering brook, which then finally becomes the placid lake. And I added, of course, continuing on into the vast open space of the ocean of awareness itself. The waterfall experience is what he called that. Or the meandering river experience. I see it as even a little bit bigger. The Placid Lake experience, I wonder if that wasn't his own training around the hindrances. Some practical tips, and again, this is a very basic, be relaxed and alert at the same time. That means attention as well as ease. And we're always looking for that fulcrum, that center point of attentive enough and yet not pressured and striving, restful enough, not so restful that we become dull and sloth-like. And that's a continuing balance. Every moment, we're really checking in. Where am I now? Where am I with this? This is our mindfulness practice coming to serve us. He says you can break up these practices into 3 to 5 minute sessions with short breaks, minutes in between. We have learned since, by the way, that these are beautiful informal practices throughout the day, and I would strongly encourage them. We have also learned in the neuroscience that they are not sufficient. All these 3 to 5 minute breaks, though useful, are not going to grow one's capacity for mindfulness. They are going to be momentary. They're going to be useful in the moment. Hopefully, out of their usefulness in the moment, you see their benefit and then will commit yourself to at least 13 to 15 minutes of practice each day, which is required, a level of stillness and silence required in order to hold what the mind makes contact with. Because making contact is part of it, the capacity to hold it and now use it. And then actually, what? Even further in our mindfulness function, respond. We're not capable in little 3 and 5 minute. We don't have enough stability of mind to do it. Look at what you have to sift through. I'm going to make contact with an object. The object, I like it or I hate it. I want it or I don't want it. I'm already carried away. Remember, this is a autopiloted, nanoseconded react, and then the reactivity begins. I'm grabbing, clinging, wanting, or blah, and then lost in the story. So 3 to 5 minutes, could you see it? Yes. Could you generally slightly calm, disconnect from that mind state potentially just to soothe for a moment? Yes. Could you stay to be able to then ultimately untangle? No. No. So you'd be doing 3 to 5 minutes the whole day. That would be a nice long meditation. We might call that meditation for life. I like the idea a lot. But we need a little bit of sustained attention, resting in that luminosity in order to respond, not just react. Too tight, too loose, that's a lute. There's some beautiful, in the suttas, some beautiful writings about the lute being overstrung, a little too tight, a little too high. Can't you hear it in your own voice? I love the lute of our own voice. La, 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 get up there now. And also the drag. We can notice that in our own, the strings of our own voice box, seeing how you really are. Then it gives some instructions around ways to hold oneself, using shawls or blankets. Or there is some research on this, by the way, around the wrapping of oneself. Anybody seen recently who has a grandbaby? I think if you have a new grandbaby, the new swaddling techniques, they're not new, they're thousands of years old, but they're revived. This really holding the infant and the calming effect to that infant of being truly held and wrapped. Well, this is what we're doing with our own heart minds. We're wrapping ourselves in our own heart mind. We have the new research on sleep. I just bought a weighted blanket because I wake up throughout the night. That's a genetic predisposition of both my parents. And right, that heavy blanket, just swaddling us. And this luminosity is maybe the best blanket ever. Its capacity for swaddling us, I think, is huge. Comforting, soothing, calming. These are some practice suggestions. We have done them. He writes here on this page, a deeper peace is found within the sky-like awareness itself, one that isn't bothered. It cannot be bothered, whether there are thoughts, emotions, or sense objects. Really doesn't matter, does it? It's just all held in such a vast open space. We don't mistake it as we're resting in the truth of who we really are. We just don't mistake it. Very unlike the breath itself. We can mistake the breath as us breathing. We can mistake the practice as us practicing, placing the mind. We can get a little stuck, can't we, in all of that? It's still useful practice, that single pointed focused attention on something as ephemeral, temporary, and coming and going as the breath. But I think there's something in that vast open space that now there is no object required. No object required. We have the breath there when we need it, which is really lovely and can be very skillfully used, but without remembering where we're heading with the breath, even, right? Which is not just clinging to the breath like a life raft. I think we can still get lost. Talks about supports and the natural clarity of mind. Daniel Goleman, again, I'm just going to take a minute here. He is reminded that our practice is not about our thoughts, but about our relationship to them. In vast open luminosity, our relationship is simply that. A, we don't mistake it as us. B, all embraced, received, held, and known, but not with, oh, that thought is me. We don't take claim of thoughts. So the relationship is open, friendly, caring, responsive. I would say we want that capacity of that luminous awareness with all things. But if we cannot bring it to ourselves, it will become impossible to bring it to others. If we cannot bring it to our own thoughts, we will not be able to tolerate the perspectives, the thoughts, the uh, speech, and the behaviors of others. If we don't know where it really comes from, and that requires that sustainability of attention, that we can see under all of that aversion, under all of that attachment, under all of that greed, under all of that aggression, is simply fear. Simply fear. And then we begin to see ourselves and others as lost children, momentarily lost children who just need someone to help them find their way home. That's us, right? This is our job. And then we see, don't we, all the capacity of every single action, of every single thought, of every single response we make, leading then, as Ram Dass says, each other home. This is the point of it all. And if we're not doing that, then we just have to come back home and attend to ourselves, don't we? To go, wait a minute, I don't have enough supply right now to be here for me and you. And then we do what is required, which is turn back towards ourselves with maybe in the early teachings, it says a little seclusion, a little, for 3 or 5 breaths, 3 or 5 minutes, 3 or 5 hours, I don't, but until we are again resourced, because that's all it's signaling is I don't have enough to hold us both right now. Not because you are bad or you are horrible or you are the problem, but because I myself am also underwater, caught in the pond. He also says the strongest findings over and over again is simply watching the breath and letting other thoughts come and go. This is disidentifying with thoughts. We're just putting an object there so that we don't get caught up in them or hijacked by them. Not everyone can rest in open space to begin. They need a place to land and to land and to land. Our community is practiced sufficiently. We can. And then the breath is always there anyway, isn't it? So then, whoops, little caught, right back here, just anchoring into the breath for a few breaths, making sure I'm really grounded in present moment. And then I can open once again at the end of the out breath, right into this. I think I just left everything else. Anything else anybody saw in here that they thought was particularly interesting? There's the dose response. Did anybody find that interesting? When stressed, the meditator showed a smaller rise in cortisol than others because the same level of reactivity is not available in them. We do know in dose response, by the way, that the 8-week course, the reason it became 8 weeks was we saw that it took about 8 weeks of consistent practice to actually have it available then to people in an everyday way. 6 weeks less so, 4 weeks even less. They got the right idea. They did not establish the practice. Wasn't there.
More hours of lifetime practice than individual stress.
Yeah, Libby's speaking about the amygdala recovery that is also down here that says those people who confronted adversity or difficulties did not stay in elevated states, did not stay in cortisol release. And the amygdala we actually see on the fMRIs shrinks and moves from red to orange to yellow, right? Like the rainbow, really all the way back into green and blues, which is the restful state.
I was curious, like, is that the only way to get the response? Like, if you had your cortisol level tested, or if you had that fMRI, which you're talking about, to
Yeah.
see where you're at
We
with
know
that,
that.
you can't.
Oh, no, you can actually know. There's neurofeedback done all the time, which is just we help people begin to recognize qualities of both body, qualities of breath, qualities of thoughts, and emotions as the meters that you're reading in order to know whether you're in a reaction or not. So you don't need a machine. You've got one. It's called your own mind body available, and down regulating that last the last couple chapters there. Um, I liked that part. We're better off if we can down regulate inflammatory genes. That is, turn them off. That's exactly what Richie Davidson from Wisconsin discovered with the Vipassana practitioners, those who placed particular attention first on the breath. And really what screened out, this was the point, nobody could rest in luminous open space first because the thoughts were just everywhere. They really needed another object to ground in over and over so that at the end of the out breath, eventually they could feel that sense of spaciousness that could eventually hold everything. But it is not an early practice. It is a more advanced practice. And that down regulation, placing attention simply on the out breath itself, invites the parasympathetic nervous system. We know this for sure. How many breaths? 10 to 20? 10 to 20 will actually change the condition of the brain, structure of the brain itself. Really amazing watching it go from a shriveled raisin literally back into its natural state and not inflamed, all reds in the fMRIs with adrenaline, epinephrine, cortisol, and those kinds of things. We know these things for sure. We know these things for
Interesting.
sure.
I felt feeling lonely was the booster of the inflammatory.
Libby's saying that loneliness, we know, is one of the greatest inflammatory feelings. Why? Separation. That sense of separateness from what? Everything. Life, the other, the nature, you're disconnected. And isn't it not then one of the worst states? If you think about what's the most painful, difficult, is this feeling of disconnect, this feeling of no connection to others, to this earth, to the world, to myself. Even I don't know if there's a more painful state possible. And the point being, what can we recognize that as our a conditioned state, not our fault, not our nature, and then know that there is something we can do. We can absolutely do something with it. What? Be here, beginning with ourselves, without drowning in the storyline. There's no point. It's too hard. It's never gonna. Right. And you can hear yourself because I can hear me. What's the point of this? It's never going to be different. He's never going to be different. This is just always going to, this is my plan. Always going to, the storyline. But the minute we recognize it, no longer caught. Doesn't mean it isn't playing, but it's not playing not quite this as loud, not quite the same tune. It's like, no. And then I can offer myself refuge. This is the point. Why? So that I can see the truth of the situation. That is not the truth. It is not the other. Honest. I know it's so hard.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Yes,
Right.
Dennis?
Well, the way that we sound off, that seems to make all the difference. Whether it's with my son who doesn't want to talk, but the way we resonate, how we resonate makes such a difference to ourselves and to whoever we're with or need to touch.
That's
just
right.
like I just notice this with everything that I'm doing, and it's like if I'm playing my hand drum, but this resonant that comes from your heart,
That's right.
like your heart and soul, and it's always beating, it's always in there. You get still. When my cat is on my heart, I can feel the cat's heart. I can feel my heart, and it's like, wow, this is life. How we're vibrating and just letting it flow.
Yes. And we need a little practice.
Go.
Not because it isn't our true nature, Dennis, because you are completely correct, it is. But remember, the hindrances are ever available. The swamp is everywhere. The mind is, by its brain-stemmed nature, going to find its way into the default mode. Does it mean it's true? No. Does it mean it's going to happen? Yes. Does it mean in our recognition, we can find our way back to ourselves, back to love, back to that beating heart? Yes. But I think it's some of the most challenging and most beautiful work.
Truly.
Noblest work is to go, wait a minute, let me take responsibility for and accountability, every moment of contractedness. I've just now, 30 years later, started to get the idea that there's really no problem anywhere except in my own heart mind. And I'm now able to turn towards it honestly, just without hatred, without judgment, without loathing, without then you're pathetic or the other's pathetic, but to really hold it simply the moment of what human vulnerability, tenderness, right? There is hope for me. I have just started to, there is hope for me. And then consequently, I suspect hope for us all. Let me read this a little bit. We had Valentine or Teen, I'm not sure. I'm sorry we didn't get to say more hello to her. Coming from an empty place is scary. Well, it is scary if we think empty means nothing. It's the number one mistake of the Zen tradition, is that Zen students mistake empty for nothing. And so you see Zen students just kind of look, right? And they think this is what it's about. No, not in any way. It is nothing disconnected. It is nothing passive. It is nothing. Equilibrium does not look like that. It does not look. Equanimity does not look like nothing. It looks like vast, open, embracing, engaged, you would say, right? Connected to the reality of the present moment, not some distance from it. And the more oming you do, unfortunately, you have to be careful. This is one of the hindrances. You can go straight into the dullness of samadhi, like, ugh, what are you doing? Nothing. Nothing. Well, this is not the point. It is with equanimity, can I? And that means what? Non-reactivity is all that means, but not nothing. There's no such thing. Going to walk into court with this? Yes. Somatic vision biofeedback, alive games and workshops, while divine guided meditations, while getting continued feedback, amazing results. Yes, we have all the capacity for that. And then we also create tools and instruments. We can measure heart rates. We can measure pulse rates. We can measure pupil dilation. We can measure the hair on your skin. We can measure the hair on the back of your neck. We can measure your depth of your breath. Right? All of these measures are simply what we're already doing, by the way, and those tools can be also helpful, which I love. So wonderful. All right. I think we are good with chapter 7. We will be going on to chapter 8. Libby, can you tell me what the name of that is? I have forgotten. I'm not looking at the Kindle.
A deeper look within.
A deeper look within. How perfect. What perfect timing. A deeper look within. We're going to move to that for next week. Wonderful to see you all. Thank you again to all of those who've contributed so lovingly to EMC, who will contribute double to Shelter Box. And all those who are helping with all the other things that we're doing and going to continue to do, and we'll only be doing more, not less. Why? We are capable. That's why we are capable of this. So I want to thank you all so much for all of it. Without the community, we would not be able to contribute in these significant ways. By the way, without the practice of Sangha, which by the way is also a practice, we're going to be talking about that a little bit, because I'm in the new year going to start asking people to do a little bit more showing up, not just Zoom, at least 2 times a month, that you show up somewhere, wherever that is. And if they can't be here for any reason, somewhere else. Why? Because we have to put these teachings and our own good hearts into action, right? Actionable. And Zoom is lovely, and I am so grateful for it, but I don't want us practicing strictly from Zoom. Okay, we're going to be working on that in the new year. Let's just take a moment. I'll recite the daily aspiration for those who are still here. Thank you for hanging on. Finding that vast, open, and luminous space once again. May I be a guard for those who need protection, a guide for those on the path, a boat, a raft, a bridge, for those who wish to cross the flood. May I be a lamp in the darkness, a resting place for the weary, a healing medicine for all who are sick, a vase of plenty, a tree of miracles. And for the boundless multitudes of living beings, may I bring sustenance and awakening, enduring like the earth and the sky, until all beings are free from sorrow and all are awakened. May this practice this very day contribute, and may it continue. So be it. Thank you all so much. I so appreciate you and love you. Thank you all. Be well, everyone. We will not be in the garden this Saturday because I'll be in Dallas, Texas, but we will be on Zoom, and then we'll be live in the garden every Saturday for the rest of the year, and hopefully beyond. All right, everyone. Thank you as well. Take good care.